I'm Stuart Robinson. I'm a faculty member here at SMU in the psychology department. I've been teaching for some time. I wanted first, before I start, to just note that Dr. Settle and her colleagues at the Counseling and Testing Center do a wonderful job at identifying and evaluating and counseling students, and they're a very, very valuable resource. As a professor, as a lecturer, we can only have the first cut at a student. We can identify some students that might need help, but it's their resource that really helps identify specifically what it is and how to do something about it. I'm going to talk very quickly and very briefly on a number of topics, but that are categorized into three major areas. There's some of the signs that indicate a student may have some learning differences while they're in the classroom itself, and some of the teaching strategies that a professor can use that will not only help students with learning differences, but really do a better job at reaching all the students, and some of the weaknesses and strengths that students specifically with learning differences have. First of all, a classroom is a very diverse environment. So I'm going to ask my colleagues here to represent some of the other students that don't have learning differences, but still are interesting students. And we always have high achievers, overachievers. So Dr. Settle, you can be our overachiever, and all you have to do is just act perfectly, because that's what overachievers do. But you'll notice that not only do they act perfectly, they're going to be very tense, and they will not answer questions because they're very, very worried about having the wrong answer. Now, Dr. Lexa, Mrs. Ray will be our high affiliator, and high need for affiliation, and she's very concerned about belonging. First of all, she's usually not even in class because she has a social life, and when she's in class, she's also not going to answer any questions because she's worried about being embarrassed. But she's going to look perfectly, and she's going to be very relaxed. And Jamie can be our high need for attention student. And those are going to be very, very talkative, but during class, they're going to be talking to everybody except you as the professor. But also, they'll be very quick to come up at the end of class and ask if they can spend some time with you in your office. Now, the ADD student, or the student with learning differences, let's talk about the ADD student, they're going to be asking questions. That's what's neat about them. But usually they're going to be asking questions on what you just talked about 5 minutes before, and it's going to be a great question. Or they're going to be asking questions on what you're just about to talk about, which is an uncanny strength that they have. And it all has to do with how they're focusing their attention. Some more things about students with learning differences. And this is overly simplistic, and again, it's only from a professor's point of view. But you can watch how students stare, and this makes sense to some degree. A student with reading differences are going to have trouble reading, so they're going to be staring most of the time at the screen or at the board, and they're not going to be spending much time listening to what you're saying, and they're not going to be spending much time writing notes. And the students with writing differences are going to be spending all their time writing, and they're not going to be spending as much time as they need listening to what you're saying or reading what's on the board or on the screen. These types of things are extremely important when we talk later about one of the basic accommodations is just providing the notes in advance. Speech differences, if a student has speech differences, which are common to some degree, they'll be staring right at your mouth. They want to understand what you're saying, and at the same time, they're not taking their notes and they're not reading what's on the board. And then there are going to be students that are under the influence, and they're going to be staring and smiling at the same time. And then there are going to be students, with ADD, with hyperactivity, and they're going to be staring everywhere except up front. They're going to be looking at everything. And the ADD students without hyperactivity, which is really difficult, they're going to be staring, difficult to recognize, but they'll be staring right above your head. Because they'll be looking at you for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and then they'll be looking back up right afterwards because their mind is racing. They're thinking about different things. But all of those inhibit their ability to take notes. All of them inhibit their ability to see and pay attention to specific details in the presentation. It's kind of like, with ADD, it's kind of like driving down Central Expressway going 70 miles an hour, talking on the phone to your mother-in-law, to your ex-wife, to your real estate agent, and to your attorney at the same time, and try to pay attention to driving. Let me see what else I can tell you about it. ADD with hyperactivity is easy to spot. in the classroom because the person's hyperactive, the student's hyperactive. They're easily distracted. They're restless. They're fidgety, and they're going to be interrupting. They're going to be interrupting you. Well, they're going to be talking to their friends or whoever's sitting next to them. But most importantly, they're not going to listen. You're going to ask them to stop talking, and they're going to say, yes, I'll stop talking, but they'll forget in a second. So they'll start talking again. So it's going to give the appearance that they don't care. And that's one of the most worrisome aspects of students with all learning differences, because they always give the appearance outwardly that they don't care. In terms of ADD without hyperactivity, you've got that blank stare. But often that blank stare is indicating some sort of daydreaming, but it's not the typical student daydream. A typical student is daydreaming as to what they're going to do that weekend, where they're going to go shopping, or whatever it's involved. An ADD stare and daydream is, what did I forget? How many things do I have to remember? And they're very concerned, very conscientious, so that if they start to daydream, it's because they've got a lot of things that they're trying to juggle at one time. They will misread information. They'll often be late. They'll be the student that shows up late. They'll misread information on the test, and you'll find that they'll have 60 points missed on the test because they just made some minor mistake. Their notebook is the messiest notebook in the room. They have pages. They have a notebook, but they have pages that are stuck in it. If you watch their notes they have writing all over the paper. They never write from left to right. They have a lot of trouble paying attention to details, especially when it comes to assignments. And if you make it a point with them, you're lucky if they show up. They'll forget. You're lucky if they come up on time. It doesn't mean they don't care. It's just that they have a lot going on in their life that most of the other students don't necessarily have. Let me see if I can skip to some more important things. Many seem to have trouble taking notes, like I said, remembering things. And this has to do with all students with learning differences. A lot of students with learning differences, no matter what, ADD or what, they will procrastinate, and that seems to be biological because it's very fatiguing to concentrate on reading. It's very fatiguing to concentrate on writing. It's very fatiguing to concentrate on focusing your attention much more so than most people. And as a result of that, they end up waiting to the last minute where the adrenaline can kick in for an assignment. The most important strategy that a teacher can do is have a good attitude about their ADD students and accept the fact, or students with learning differences, and be open-minded to the accommodations and have some sensitivity to it. The most important thing is that they do feel, though I believe, is that most faculty are not aware of the diversity of students and the diversity of learning differences, have a tendency to think that they don't care. Like Dr. Settle said, sometimes they're assuming that these students are lazy, crazy, or stupid. But most importantly, they worry about them not caring. I'm here to suggest to you that that's not really the student. The students may care a lot. They just might not. They might be making the wrong decisions. They might not necessarily have the right priorities at the time, but they do care. The people who are worried about students not caring are typically the faculty. Because the faculty, that's the biggest concern the faculty members have, is that if they go to all this trouble and they're devoting their careers to teaching students, that's what they want the students to do, is to care. So it might be that it's not that the students with learning differences don't care, it's that might be our biggest fear, and we might be projecting that onto the situation. Thanks. I'll be happy to answer questions later.